What's going on, guys? I'm Gregory West and welcome back to another one of my videos. This video is going to be about grandpa voice, and I actually stole that name from my friend Tony. He also calls it hypercompression. You can check out his channel here. I want to talk about what grandpa voice is useful for and what it's not useful for. I think this is definitely a cool thing to be aware of with your voice, both because you might try to misapply it looking for, something else and sort of mistaking it for that thing. Part of the reason I'm making this video is because I recently saw a YouTube video where a student was making this grandpa sound and the teacher wasn't, and he was telling the student that they were doing like the same thing, or that what he was doing with the grandpa voice would actually lead to what the teacher was doing, and that's just not true. And so I wanted to get this information out there to help people like that student kind of realize that he's not going down the right path. So what grandpa voice is extreme false vocal fold approximation. Now, your false vocal folds kind of sit on top of your vocal folds. They're right above them, and we can use them for all sorts of different things. When we do glottal stops, they're coming in together and approximating, getting closer to one another in order to help us resist the breath pressure. When they touch and vibrate together, we get a sound like distortion. Grandpa voice sounds like Other suitable names would probably be the poop voice, the lifting something really heavy voice. This coordination is also referred to as Valsalva. It's different from other coordinations in the sense that the false vocal folds aren't squeezing together quite so hard in other coordinations, and we rely on other ways to get our voice to coordinate. So for example, if I do I'm not using grandpa voice to get that to coordinate. I'm not relying on this really intense squeeze from the false vocal folds to get my voice to coordinate. So what is it useful for? Well, it's super useful for rough vocal effects like distortion. So because we're squeezing the false vocal folds so close together in grandpa voice, it makes it easier to get the false vocal folds to actually start touching and creating a distortion noise. You don't have to do grandpa voice to do distortion. You can definitely figure out how to do distortion without a lot of, extreme false vocal fold constriction, but it's a useful stepping stone, to learn distortion. It's also good for different vocal textures, like a husky sound or a more effortful quality to your voice. So let's say I'm singing, a phrase like, hey you, I'm just now leaving. Can I come around later on this evening? And maybe I want to make it, a little bit more effortful. I want to put a little bit more, a little just something different. We can use the grandpa as a sort of texturing device and maybe make it a little bit more husky, a little bit more soulful. Hey you, I'm just now leaving. Can I come around later on this evening? It's just different, it gives it more of this like smoky vibe. And if you get control over it, you can just do, maybe one moment of grandpa voice in a phrase. Desperado, why don't you come to your senses? Come down from your fences for too long now. I think the ultimate goal with grandpa voice is really that, you put it on a spectrum, a controllable spectrum, where you could do just a bit of it or you could do a lot of it. So if I make grandpa voice really tight, this is like extreme grandpa. But I can also loosen it a bit and make my voice less squeezed and a bit louder. So a good goal is to like take a note and then be able to turn the grandpa on and then turn it off. So I'm definitely not the most skilled with this voice. You know, there's lots of people that can do it more skillful than me, that are better. And in fact, I encourage you to check out Tony's channel because he's better at it than me. You can also check out and get in contact with my friend Jens. His channel's right here. He's a lot more skilled than I am as well. All right, so that's some stuff that the grandpa voice is useful for. But what is it not useful for? You know, how is it going to be an obstacle for you? I think grandpa voice is not useful for developing typical mixed voice sounds. So like, let's say you're going up in your range, and you start hitting like this wall where it starts getting uncomfortable. You might be tempted to squeeze the grandpa to get past that point. Or, ooh. This is not really mixed voice. A more typical mixed voice would be like, ooh. Grandpa voice, ooh, is not gonna lead to that. Ooh. They're just different things. I think grandpa voice will also hold you back from really having like easy sounding high notes. You know, there's always going to be this like effortful character with grandpa voice. It's never going to sound, you know, like the notes are just floating out of you and they're easy and free. It's always going to have this, you know, effortful quality. When a man loves a woman, when a man loves a woman. I think the grandpa voice will also work against you for belting. Like if you want like really loud, you know, powerful sounds, then the grandpa voice is not really the way to get there, in my opinion. I think the grandpa voice kind of holds your voice back a bit and really restricts the maximum power that you could get. So like, let's compare a belted note versus that same note with some grandpa. Hey! Hey! I think we perceive belting as, you know, this kind of open, loud sound that isn't really held back. And grandpa just kind of has this held back texture to it. And this kind of misses the mark for what belting is supposed to sound like to us. I think it also really limits your volume and character dynamics. So what I mean is that it makes it hard to go from like a soft volume to a loud volume. It's like grandpa voice kind of just gets you stuck in this one sound, and then that's all you have, which is also what I mean, like, it's hard to have like different dynamics in terms of the character of your voice. Like if I'm singing without the grandpa, it's easy for me to do, you know, like, what if you had it all, but nobody to call? Maybe then you know me. Like if I use the grandpa voice, those changes become really, really difficult to navigate. What if you had it all, nobody to call? Maybe then you'd know me. I just feel like my voice is a lot less flexible in general. It's really hard for me to find, you know, twang with my voice. Like if I don't have the grandpa, it's easy for me to really brighten the sound of my voice and, you know, be able to make that sound color happen. But if I have the grandpa, that's pretty much impossible. So this has been my experience with these sounds, but, you know, you can reference people that are skilled with it in a way that I'm not, and, you know, get their opinion too. The more I practice it, the more skill and ability I seem to get with the grandpa voice, and the more, you know, flexible it becomes. So now I'm going to show you guys an endoscopy of what my vocal folds, you know, and the area above my vocal folds look like when I'm in grandpa voice versus when I'm in another kind of coordination. All right, guys, so as you can probably hear, that is the grandpa voice sound. And I just want to, you know, point out some things to you to look at. So here we've got the false vocal folds right here on the sides of the true vocal folds, right? These are the vocal folds. These are the things that are vibrating, making the sound of my voice right now. And then these are the false vocal folds. So I want you to notice, let's go back. Look how squeezed and close together these things are. Isn't that interesting? This is not how they look, you know, during normal phonation. Like as I'm talking to you right now, it does not look like this. These are coming very, very close together, and they're really, really squeezing in. Now, what's interesting here is in the breathy example, or like the husky example of grandpa, what's really interesting is that we're able to keep, a lot of like tension within the false vocal folds, keeping them constricted and more approximated. But over here at the top part of the back part of the vocal folds, you'll see like some gaping. All right, you'll see a bit of a hole at the back part of the folds. Where you can really hear the husky grandpa sound. Right there, you see that little gap? So it's really interesting. Grandpa voice is like a type of, constriction. It's this. This is really narrowing, but it's not pushing together and closing the back part of the vocal folds and closing back there. Or at least it's possible not to in grandpa voice. And so you remember how I said that grandpa voice is kind of on a spectrum? Well, this is a little bit of what I mean. Like here, this is grandpa voice, and you can see, the false vocal folds are there, but then we can see how they get closer together. So this is really the spectrum that you're controlling is this. Engaging it more, engaging it less. So here's an example of going from, a sound that doesn't have grandpa to something that does have the grandpa. And this is kind of like a soft sound here going to the grandpa. That's just on and off with the grandpa. So check out the difference between that like typical mixed voice sound and the grandpa voice. And just notice how much of a difference there is in where the parts of my throat are. Right? A lot of things are moving around and adjusting, and this is just sort of going to show you that this is not the same thing. Like these are not the same techniques. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you press the like button and subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed for more content about singing. Till next time.